Hey Army, it's Taehyung. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. A quiet dinner was supposed to bring closure, maybe even a small step toward healing after years of tension. But nothing about tonight went as planned. The moment started like any other family dinner: warm lights, the smell of grilled meat, and the soft clinking of silverware. Then it happened. Jungkook's father, calm and composed behind his thin-rimmed glasses, uttered words that cut through the room like a blade. You still think your career is more important than your family, than your duty? The word duty hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I couldn't hold back. My voice cracked, sharp and raw, slicing through the tension. You don't get to talk about him like that, not in front of me. Plates froze mid-air. Chopsticks clattered to the floor. Every eye in the room turned toward me, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't let him continue to define Jungkook with control and fear. You talk about duty like it's love, I spat, trembling with fury. All I see is control. You never saw him. You only saw what you wanted him to be. Jungkook sat there, hands clenched under the table, his breath shallow. I could see the weight of years he'd carried silently pressing down on him. He hadn't prepared for this. No one had. The dinner table, meant for reconciliation, had turned into a battleground of truths finally voiced aloud. His father's eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. "And who gave you the right to speak for him?" he asked coldly. "I didn't take the right," I said, voice icy. "You gave it to me when you walked away from him, when you made him question his worth every single day." The room seemed to hold its breath. Jungkook's mother reached for her glass, hands shaking. Jungkook looked at me, his eyes wide, a mix of relief and disbelief. I wasn't supposed to carry this weight for him. He wasn't supposed to need saving from his own father. And yet, there I was, shaking with anger, heartbreakingly loyal, standing in his place. Finally, Jungkook rose from his seat. Chairs scraped the floor. His gaze met mine briefly before turning to his father. His voice, low but unshakable, hit the room like a thunderclap. "I'm a man who spent 26 years trying to earn a version of you that doesn't exist. I thought if I worked harder, if I became more obedient, more successful, maybe one day I'd hear you say you were proud. That day never came. Your love was conditional. Jim, I mean, you, Taehyung, never asked me to change. He never made me feel like I was failing just by being who I am. You did." The words didn't just resonate, they detonated. His mother lowered her eyes, tears tracing her cheeks silently. His father sat frozen, staring at a son he barely recognized. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he never would. Jungkook didn't flinch. He turned back to me, grasped my hand, grounding both of us in a moment that was raw, fierce, and real. Dinner continued in tense silence. No one ate, but everyone heard. Later, we left the house together, walking into the night with hands intertwined. The cold bit at our cheeks, but we didn't care. "Thank you for saying what I never could," Jungkook whispered. "You said it," I replied. "I just lit the match." It was a night that changed everything, and yet the storm outside was nothing compared to what awaited the moment the audio leaked online. Social media erupted. Fans, journalists, industry insiders, everyone wanted to dissect, debate, and react. Jungkook's courage became headline news. Some praised him, some criticized, but no one could ignore the raw honesty of the moment. When we returned to the dorm, the weight of what had happened hung heavy. Hype called emergency meetings. Managers were frantic. Phones didn't stop ringing. Jungkook looked at me, exhaustion etched into his features. They want me to release a statement denying it happened. I stopped packing, turning to him. Are you going to? No, he said, resolute. I exhaled, relief washing over me. Then let's burn it all down together, he said. The morning after the dinner confrontation was surreal. The sun felt too bright, too intrusive, as if the world refused to acknowledge the storm that had just passed in our private lives. But the storm wasn't over, it had only just begun. My phone vibrated relentlessly. Notifications from ARMY, messages from our team, and then the first viral post. Clips from last night's argument were circulating online, edited, captioned, and sensationalized. Jungkook sat on the couch, headphones on, scrolling silently. The weight in his shoulders hadn't lifted. Every notification sounded like a drumbeat, relentless and accusing. I wanted to pull him close, shield him from the world, but I couldn't. This time, he had to face it, and maybe he wanted to. Taehyung, he muttered, barely audible. They're saying, I humiliated my dad. They're twisting it, turning me into some villain. I leaned against the doorway, crossing my arms, my own anger simmering. Do you care what they say? You spoke your truth. You finally owned it. That's all that matters. But everyone's watching, he said, voice low, trembling. The board, fans, even the older armies who never liked me taking risks. I walked over and took his hands. Cookie, the moment you stop letting the world define you, you win. Not your dad, not the board, not anyone. The following hours were chaos. Calls from our management team, demands for statements, interviews arranged and cancelled on the fly. I had never seen Jungkook so tense, so burdened, yet beneath it all, something had shifted. There was a steel in his gaze, an unspoken determination. We were called into the high boardroom. Cold, sterile, and intimidating, it felt like the walls themselves judged him. The executive spoke in clipped tones, asking him to apologize, to explain, to retract, to perform contrition for emotions that were as real as the blood in his veins. Jungkook, one of them said, voice calm but sharp, you need to control the narrative. You cannot allow your personal feelings to disrupt our image. You must issue a statement. He didn't flinch. His jaw tightened, eyes glinting with fire. I am not issuing a false statement. This is my life, my experience, my truth. If the company cannot respect that, then maybe this isn't just about a PR issue. It's about humanity, about respect. I could feel the room shift, tension thickening the air. The executives exchanged looks, some incredulous, some silently impressed. This wasn't just a boardroom fight, it was a turning point. After the meeting, we retreated to our dorm. Jungkook was exhausted but awake with ideas, plans, and fears that twisted in his mind. What if this blows up even more? What if the backlash is too much? I shook my head. Then we face it together. You've carried enough alone. I'm not letting you do this by yourself. We spent the evening strategizing, drafting statements, preparing for every possible scenario. And then the unexpected happened. A popular news outlet got hold of the full audio of the confrontation. The clip spread faster than wildfire. Comments poured in, some supportive, some hateful, some accusing him of disrespect. Social media became a battlefield. Fans dissected every word, every intonation, every glance. Jungkook's vulnerability was now a public spectacle. I watched him scroll, heart aching. I hated that he had to endure this, but I also knew that this was the moment that would define him, not his father, not the board, not even the critics. This was Jungkook, raw and real, finally unchained. Then came the most critical moment. An interview request from a major Korean network. They wanted him to speak live, to clarify, to confess, to reconcile, or to implode. His hands trembled slightly as he considered it. I put my hand over his. Do it your way. You've already faced the storm at home. This is just another room full of people who will listen if you let them. He nodded slowly, resolve hardening. I'll do it, but I want you there. I can't do this alone. The next day, we stepped into the studio. Lights blazed, cameras spun, microphones captured every nuance. The host, professional but warm, greeted him, unaware of the storm that had preceded this moment. Jungkook sat, poised yet vulnerable, ready to speak. I stood slightly behind, my presence a silent anchor, ready to intervene if needed. And then, as the cameras rolled, Jungkook did something no one expected. He didn't apologize. He didn't hedge. He spoke his truth with a courage that left the host momentarily speechless, the crew silent, and viewers at home holding their breath. Every word was deliberate, every emotion raw, telling the world not only about his father, but about the journey that had brought him here, about the person he had become, and the love and support he had found in me. The segment ended. Applause filled the studio, not just for the performance, but for the honesty. Jungkook's vulnerability became a testament to strength, his courage a beacon. The world saw him not as a puppet of expectations, but as a man who had finally reclaimed his narrative. And as we walked off the set together, hands intertwined, I knew one thing. The storm wasn't over, but Jungkook had survived it, and we had survived it together. The moment the interview aired, the world erupted. Social media platforms lit up like fireworks on New Year's Eve. Trending hashtags that had never existed before. Number Jungkook speaks truth topped Twitter within minutes. Clips circulated on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, millions watching, sharing, dissecting, analyzing every word. Some comments were supportive, thousands offering encouragement, expressing pride in his courage. Others were cruel, attacking him for defying his father, accusing him of disrespect. Jungkook stared at his phone, expression unreadable, though his hands shook slightly. I could see the storm of emotions flicker across his face. Relief, fear, defiance, guilt. Taehyung, he whispered, voice strained. I didn't expect this many reaction. It's overwhelming. I pulled him close, holding him firmly. I know, but remember what we talked about. None of this changes who you are. None of it defines you. He nodded, leaning into me, taking comfort in the quiet support. Yet the notifications didn't stop. Messages from fans poured in, some pleading for details, others defending him against harsh critics. News agencies called asking for statements. And then came the calls, that truly mattered the calls from his father. I knew Jungkook had been avoiding them, hoping perhaps the media storm might come before any direct confrontation. But avoidance could only last so long. The phone rang, his father's name flashing on the screen. Jungkook froze, tension rigid in his body. His thumb hovered over the answer button, hesitation written in every movement. Do you want me to? I started, but he shook his head. No, I have to do this. It's time. He answered. The line was tense, silence heavy before words came. Cookie. His father's voice was tight, formal, almost fragile. I saw the interview. Jungkook inhaled deeply, holding back the anger that had almost consumed him the night before. Yes, I spoke. I had to. I know, his father admitted. I didn't understand. I still don't fully, but the voice faltered, a rare crack showing vulnerability. I want to protect you. Always have. You can't protect me by controlling me. Jungkook replied softly but firmly. I respect you, Dad. I love you, but I can't keep living by the fear of disappointing you. The pause was long. I could feel the tension in the room, even across the phone line. His father's voice, when it returned, was quieter, more reflective. I may have been too harsh. I just didn't want you to struggle like I did. I thought I was helping. And now you see that control isn't help, Jungkook said, his tone unwavering yet calm. You can't dictate my choices, Dad. You can guide me, support me, love me, but I have to live my life. I watched him, heart swelling with pride and relief. This wasn't an easy moment. This wasn't about winning. This was about understanding, about boundaries, about finally being heard. Meanwhile, online reactions continued to escalate. Armies flooded social media with supportive messages, fan videos, fan edits, and trending discussions that spanned the globe. International media picked up the story, creating a whirlwind of interviews and coverage. Jungkook's phone buzzed endlessly, messages flying in faster than he could process. But despite the chaos, I noticed something new. He was steadier, more grounded. He'd faced the storm, and now he was learning to navigate it. Amid all this, our private moments became our refuge. Late at night, away from cameras, lights, and judgment, Jungkook would sit with me, sometimes silently, sometimes talking about fears, doubts, or even small triumphs. I never realized how much I needed to speak my truth, he admitted one night, voice soft, almost vulnerable. Even if it hurts, even if it's messy, it feels like freedom. I held him, brushing a hand through his hair. Freedom isn't painless, but it's worth it. You're worth it, and you don't have to go through it alone. The tension with his father didn't disappear overnight. There were still difficult conversations, arguments softened, but unresolved issues lingering like shadows. But each step forward, no matter how small, was progress. And through it all, Jungkook grew stronger, more confident in himself, more capable of standing tall even when the world watched. What struck me most was how the narrative had shifted. The media storm that had seemed so threatening at first now worked in our favor. People were no longer just critiquing Jungkook, they were inspired by him. His honesty, his courage, his willingness to confront both personal and public challenges resonated with millions. It was surreal watching someone so close to me navigate such intense scrutiny and emerged not only intact but empowered. Yet the story was far from over. Behind every supportive comment, there were critics. Behind every encouraging message, whispers of doubt. And amidst it all, Jungkook and I had to decide our next step, what truth we wanted to hold on to, how much we were willing to fight, and what sacrifices we were prepared to make for authenticity, love, and ultimately peace. As night fell over the city, the quiet moments between us grew even more precious. We sat together, hands intertwined, both exhausted yet unbroken. And in that silence, I realized that whatever came next, whether reconciliation, backlash, or the unknown future, we would face it together, not as idols, not as public figures, but as ourselves. The morning light felt almost surreal as Jungkook and I stepped into the sleek lobby of his father's office building. Cameras weren't there yet today, wasn't about the public eye. Today was private, raw, unfiltered. And the tension between father and son was palpable, filling the space like thick smoke. I could see it in Jungkook's posture. His shoulders were squared, his jaw set, but his hands betrayed him, twitching ever so slightly. He glanced at me, seeking reassurance, and I squeezed his hand. "You've got this. I'm right here," I whispered. He nodded, taking a deep breath, mentally preparing for the storm he knew was coming. The door opened, and there he was, Jungkook's father. Older, stern, yet the vulnerability from our phone conversation still lingered in his eyes. He studied us both, assessing, calculating, his expression unreadable. The room was silent for a long moment, an invisible countdown ticking between breaths. "Jungkook," his father finally spoke, voice firm but not angry. "I suppose we need to clear the air." "Yes, we do," Jungkook replied, voice steady but soft. "I need to tell you how I feel, how I've felt for years. I need you to listen, not to respond, not to argue, but just to hear me." There was a flicker of surprise in his father's eyes. He wasn't used to this approach. He inhaled sharply, and I could sense him bracing himself. I stayed by Jungkook's side, subtly positioning myself so my presence was grounding without being controlling. This wasn't about me, but I knew how volatile things could become. I've lived under the shadow of expectations for as long as I can remember, Jungkook began, voice gaining strength with each word. I've tried to meet them, but it's never enough. And every time I stumble, I feel your disappointment more than anything else. I know you wanted to protect me, but in doing so, you've made me afraid to live, afraid to make choices for myself. His father's eyes softened, a faint tremor in his lip. I I only wanted the best for you," he said, voice cracking slightly. "I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," Jungkook replied, "but wanting the best doesn't mean controlling the path. It doesn't mean dictating who I love, who I am, or what I want for my future. I've tried to live by your rules, but I can't anymore. I won't. I can't be someone I'm not." The tension in the room thickened. I could feel it radiating off both men, and then, unexpectedly, my own patience frayed. I stepped forward, holding back the word that had been building inside me for months. "You've put him through hell," I burst out, voice louder than I intended. "Do you have any idea what it's like to watch him struggle, to to see him doubting himself every single day because he's trying to live up to your impossible standards? Jungkook's father froze, a mix of shock and anger crossing his face. Jungkook, startled, put a hand on my arm as if to say, "Wait, don't escalate this." But I couldn't stop. You don't get to protect him by breaking him down. He's strong, he's talented, he's human, and he deserves to live without fear of judgment from the person who's supposed to love him unconditionally. The room was silent again, heavy with emotion. Jungkook's father's face shifted, the stern mask cracking completely. I didn't realize. I thought I was helping, he said, voice barely above a whisper. You were hurting him, I said softly now, calmer but resolute. And if you care about him, really care, you start by listening, by letting him be himself, by supporting him instead of controlling him. Jungkook stepped forward, taking the conversation back into his own hands. Taehyung's right. I'm not just your son, I'm a person. I can't live a life scripted by anyone else. I need to make my own choices. I need to stand on my own, with people who truly see me for me. His father sank into the chair, visibly exhausted, the fight leaving him as the weight of reality settled in. I watched Jungkook, my heart swelling with pride. He wasn't just standing up to his father, he was reclaiming himself. For a long time, no one spoke. The tension was still there, but it had transformed into something heavier, something honest. Finally, Jungkook's father lifted his gaze, eyes glistening. I I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. I want to understand you better. I want to be there for you without trying to control you. Jungkook exhaled, a mixture of relief and lingering tension in his expression. That's all I'm asking for. Not perfection, just honesty, just respect. I felt a wave of gratitude, relief, and hope. Today wasn't the end. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation, but it was progress. A crack in the wall that had separated them for years, a step toward understanding, acceptance, and perhaps even love rebuilt. As we left the office, I noticed the subtle changes, the way Jungkook's shoulders seemed lighter, the steadiness in his step. The storm had passed, at least for now, but the world outside was waiting. Social media would explode again. The public eye would scrutinize every move. But Jungkook had faced his biggest confrontation yet. He had spoken his truth. And he wasn't alone. I walked beside him, hand in hand, silently vowing to protect him, support him, and be his anchor through whatever came next. Because after today, nothing, no fame, no scrutiny, no expectations would ever break him as long as we faced the world together. The world outside didn't wait for private moments to conclude. Within hours of the confrontation, news outlets and social media exploded with speculation. Headlines screamed, tweets trended, and fan forums erupted. Every detail from Jungkook's tense expression to his father's reaction was dissected, analyzed, and debated. But despite the chaos, Jungkook and I kept our focus on each other, grounding ourselves in the reality we knew. Walking through the quiet streets after leaving his father's office, Jungkook looked worn out, the weight of the confrontation evident in the slump of his shoulders. I looped my arm around him, giving a gentle squeeze. You did what you needed to do, I reminded him. You said your truth. That's all anyone can ask of you. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I just I didn't expect it to feel this heavy. Even though I knew I needed to do it, facing him, watching him process what I said, it drained me. I know, I said softly, but now it's out, and you're free to live without hiding pieces of yourself to satisfy someone else's idea of perfection. The phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket. Glancing down, I realized the media frenzy had already begun. Messages from reporters, fan accounts tagging us, and urgent texts from their management team demanding statements. Jungkook's eyes followed mine, and I could see the mixture of anxiety and defiance in them. We'll handle it together, I assured him. No matter what they say, no one can tell your story better than you. The next few hours were a whirlwind. Jungkook agreed to a brief press statement, not the usual polished, rehearsed version, but raw, honest, and human. Cameras clicked, microphones hovered, and flashes stung, but Jungkook held himself with a quiet authority. He spoke about boundaries, respect, and personal growth, never once losing composure. I've learned that love isn't about control or expectation, he told the cameras, voice steady, though a subtle tremor betrayed the emotion behind his words. It's about support, understanding, and letting people be themselves. That includes family, friends, and those closest to us. I hope my story can encourage others to stand up for themselves while also seeking understanding with their loved ones. The media frenzy was immediate. Some headlines praised his courage, others questioned the family drama, but one thing was undeniable. Jungkook's voice resonated. Fans flooded social media with messages of support, praising his bravery and authenticity. The hashtag number Stand with Jungkook trended worldwide, carrying messages not just about him, but about personal agency and the importance of being true to oneself. I stayed close the entire time, watching him navigate the storm with a blend of resilience and vulnerability that left me in awe. There was no bravado here, no attempt to impress. This was the raw Jungkook, the part of him that had long been overshadowed by expectations and public image, finally stepping into the light, unafraid. By evening, the intensity of the public eye had calmed just enough for us to retreat to the safety of our private space. The silence there was heavy but comforting. Jungkook collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. I don't know if I can ever get used to this, he murmured. Even when I'm standing up for myself, it feels like everyone is watching, judging. You're human, I reminded him gently, and humans are allowed to feel. You're allowed to feel everything even when the world is watching. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you real. He picked at me, a small, tired smile forming. I guess I just needed someone to remind me of that. And I always will, I replied. Through every headline, every rumor, every public opinion, you'll never face it alone. We sat in quiet companionship, a mutual understanding passing between us. Outside, the world was still buzzing, but inside there was a fragile peace, a moment of reprieve after the storm. By nightfall, the media had slowed its frenzy, giving Jungkook a rare chance to breathe. But we both knew this was only the beginning. There would be more scrutiny, more questions, and inevitable comparisons to past controversies. Yet, for the first time, Jungkook felt a sense of agency he hadn't known before, a control over his own narrative, and a newfound courage to face whatever came next. I looked at him, heart swelling with pride and love. Whatever the world throws at us tomorrow, we face it together, I said firmly. And nothing, not even headlines, can take away what we've done today. Jungkook's smile grew stronger this time, genuine and unguarded. Together, he echoed. In that moment, as the night wrapped around us, we both understood that while the confrontation with his father had been monumental, the real journey, living authentically, facing the world on our terms, was just beginning. And no matter the challenges ahead, we had each other unshaken, unbroken, ready to write the next chapter of our lives. The morning after the confrontation was surreal. Waking up, the first thing I noticed was the relentless buzz of notifications on our phones. Headlines, fan posts, media articles, opinion pieces, every platform had exploded overnight. The world had caught a glimpse of what had happened, and there was no way to contain the ripple effect. Jungkook, however, seemed calmer than I expected, though the fatigue under his eyes betrayed the storm we had left behind. Sitting across from me at breakfast, he stirred his coffee slowly, avoiding the endless feed of news on his phone. I didn't expect this, he admitted quietly. Even when I prepared myself mentally, seeing it all, the reactions, the comments, the memes, it's overwhelming. I know, I said, reaching out to place a hand over his. But remember, not all attention is bad. Many people are supporting you. They see the courage it took to stand up for yourself. Focus on that. Still, I could sense the internal struggle. Jungkook had always been sensitive to public opinion, and though he wanted to be fearless, the weight of millions of eyes on his personal life was hard to shake. Fans had taken to social media like wildfire. Number support Jungkook, number love eyes respect, and number boundaries matter were trending across multiple platforms. Messages of encouragement, stories of personal struggle, and heartfelt notes poured in from every corner of the globe. But alongside that support, there were also those who criticized, speculated, or tried to pit narratives against each other. By mid-morning, Jungkook agreed to do a short live session on social media to personally thank his fans and address the situation in his own words. I watched him from the background, amazed at how he managed to maintain composure. His voice was calm, soft, but filled with conviction. He didn't just speak, he connected. He acknowledged the difficult moments, admitted vulnerability, and encouraged others to stay true to themselves. After the live session, I saw a subtle change in him. A small smile appeared, genuine this time, as he realized that authenticity resonated more than any rehearsed performance ever could. That felt lighter, he said. Even with all the noise, I think people understand now, or at least they're trying. The next hours were filled with fan interactions. Messages, fan letters, art, and videos expressing support arrived endlessly. Some were simple words of encouragement, others were elaborate compilations of Jungkook's journey and the impact of today's statement. He laughed softly at a particularly touching video montage, tears brimming but held back, a mix of relief and gratitude washing over him. Yet, amidst all the love, the scrutiny was relentless. Gossip columns ran wild, analyzing body language, tone of voice, and even the choice of words in every public appearance. Social media users debated endlessly about the family dynamics, speculating about future actions. But through it all, we remained united, grounding ourselves in the truth of our own experiences rather than the conjecture of others. By evening, we decided to take a walk, escaping the confinement of the house and the incessant digital barrage. The streets were quieter, the city lights painting a calm backdrop. Jungkook's hand found mine, and we walked in silence for a while, absorbing the tranquility. You know, he said eventually, I didn't realize how much I needed to be seen, truly seen, not as a performer, not as a son, not as anyone's expectation, but just as me. That's all anyone can hope for, I replied. And now you've taken the first step. The rest will follow one moment at a time. He nodded, letting the words settle in. There was a long road ahead, public scrutiny, personal reconciliation, and the challenges of maintaining privacy. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of ownership over his life. And I knew, as his partner, my role wasn't to shield him from the world entirely, but to walk beside him, providing support and strength. As we returned home, the night had deepened, casting a quiet calm over the city. Jungkook looked out the window, contemplative. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, he murmured. But tonight I feel free, in a way I haven't before. That freedom is yours to keep, I told him. No one can take it away, not even the world's gaze, not even expectations. You earned it,